tātou, and welcome to Finance and Performance. I'm going to start our meeting off with a short karakia. Nā reira, I runga I tērā kia I mai tātou. E te atua tēnei mātou tino mai tuku whakamoe me te atu ki a koe I tēnei ata. E te atua tuatahi rā tangihia ngā mate o te wā. Tangihia rātou e noho ana I raro I te kapua pauri e te atua uhia mai tō korowai aroha, tō korowai manaki ki runga I a rātou. O tira hoki mai ki tēnei reuma me ngā kaupapa nunui kei mua I tā mātou, arahina mai mātou I runga I te tika me te pono, koenei tā mātou I noi atu ki a koe I tēnei ata e te atua, I runga I te ngō tautamo I ukaiti. Amine. Ka pai. So I just wanted to acknowledge our mayor who is with us online in Wellington, and also I think Councillor Parata has also signalled that she will be coming in online with us today. Oh, she's... Apologies, sorry. Okay, well, we'll move into the agenda. So we do have apologies from Councillor Parata. Thank you. Second. Councillor Boros. All in favour? Any declarations of interest? No? Confirmation of non-confidential minutes? Any questions or queries around the minutes? Can I get a mover? Thank you, Councillor Taufa, and seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Aye. Let's move to our action register. Any questions on the action register? And a quick glance over at our governance work plan. Some of those papers for decision and information coming to us at our hui today. Any leaves of absence? Any acknowledgements and tributes this morning? No public input and petitions.
I'll just make a quick acknowledgement of our civil defence teams who have been working flat out for the last month, and also acknowledge across the country all the civil defence teams and councils that stood up, and also acknowledge the loss of life in Otorohanga. It really a sad time for that community, but overall just a great shout out to also the volunteers. It's not only civil defence, it's our marae that open their doors, it's FINS, it is police, it is council staff who work harder than what's expected of them. So just a big shout out to civil defence and volunteers across the country.
Tēnā koe te kahika. Right. Just making note that we're going to do a quick swap around. We're going to review firstly our paper on the draft annual plan. We're going to move that up the front. That has quite a huge decision to be made, and then we will flip into the fees and charges paper immediately after that. So I'm going to hand over to staff to talk to our draft annual plan.
Thank you. Kia ora, e morena tātou. So I'm just going to introduce the annual plan and hand over to Pauline to take you through some of the financials and then questions that you have. But just to set the context, so for those councillors that have just come on with the last triennial election, this annual plan is, the draft annual plan is year 3 of our 3-year recovery plan. So the 3-year recovery plan was set under special legislation as a result of us having a cyclone and recognition that councils' assets would be all deteriorated. We needed to do a whole lot of work and understanding the impact, and also really just focusing on recovery over the next 3 years. And so through that period, as the other councillors were quite new coming in, they set the strategic direction with oranga tangata, oranga whenua, oranga wai, moa pōpō. So those were the 3 kind of strategic pillars for the annual plan. And in that we set a revenue threshold of 11.4%, and within that 3.5% was our special recovery rate. So what we've got in this annual plan is pretty much aligned to what we had said we would set out to do in that initial 3-year recovery plan, proposing $156 million worth of capital works, of which over 90% of that is investment into core infrastructure. So we are looking at more investment towards delivering on roading. What we'll see from the recovery roading projects is we're now at a stage where procurement's done and we'll start moving into quite massive capital expenditure, which is why there's quite a big number in this last long-term plan, 3-year recovery plan for capital work. So we've got not over 90% directed to core infrastructure, which is our roading, our 3 waters, flood protection and solid waste. But what we are also proposing, and this one is the overall rates increase is 8.49%, which was again broadly aligned to what we had signalled in our 3-year plan. So we're forecasting an external debt of approximately $245 million, and so that is still within our 175% is our debt rates cap, and so we're around 160% debt to revenue. So the other thing that we need to also consider here, which will come through when we finalise the plan, is that we're also in another recovery. So we've also had the impacts in Te Araroa, Wharekahika and Punipoto, and those costings have not come through, nor have we received any external grant funding for recovery. So at this stage, we are working to try and get a really good handle on the costs that may be required for recovery. We've put an initial package up to government, but we don't know where that's going to land, especially given all the other impacts that have happened lately over the last couple of days across New Zealand. So we will bring that to you as we get closer to the final adoption of the plan. There is nothing material in here. We're not required to consult on the annual plan, but there is a discussion around the fees and charges later, which will be which will have to go out for consultation.
Pretty much summed it up, but I'm probably just going to do a little bit with regards to context, but more around the financials, and you've relayed most of those things, but I just wanted to identify it. Not only, so this context that you actually are in is actually for 3-year plan, and that 3-year plan was heavily focused on recovery, but it stated that it was also focusing on a no-frills budget. The capital program, actually over the 3 years, you've got the identified, which is on for last year, was $440 million. Again, that was predominant connecting our roads, flood protection, water services, and newly created activity, which was a Category 3 voluntary buyouts. That equated, again, you've got 90% for this year, but it'll also 91% over these critical services. Just to put that in perspective, the 3-year plan was $440 million to deliver it over 3 years. Normally that's delivered over 10 years. In terms of most of that funding was from external funding, either from Crown Recovery Package or from NZTA. Our debt forecast was decrease over that period $65 million in terms of dollar terms. But that was just under 15% of the total capital investment program. It should be noted that debt is the funding mechanism that represents the principle of intergenerational equity. It spreads the cost of the assets to those that receive the benefit over the life of the assets. But also, more critically, in recovery times, debt means you can deliver earlier than what you would otherwise be able to do. Leading into the 3-year plan, our context was a period of following COVID. Contrary to what was predicted around the impacts of COVID, actually inflation rates rose significantly. So the context leading into year 1 of that 24 to 27 year plan, 3-year plan, the forecast rates were over 20%, just 1 year. We were facing not only significant higher costs, including interest, depreciation, insurance, but we also had recovery costs, such as our Category 3 voluntary buyouts, demolition costs, and the impacts of not having a dividend from a CCTO. We're spreading the cost, and the idea being spreading the cost, the impacts over the 3 years, and spreading the cost of recoveries over all ratepayers. The latter equates to around $60 to $75 per rateable property per year. Council acknowledged the impacts of the rates would not be felt equally, and as such increased rates remission budgets for those that might be facing hardships. So effectively what Nadine has said, it's by and large year 3 of the 3-year plan. We consulted the community in March 2024 and adopted in June 24. So the legislation allows you, because it's 2 years old, to actually revisit what's changed. But by and large, as Nadine said, there are some minor changes, but they are not significant. It requires consultation. And pretty much that's it. Any questions?
Pauline. So at this point, we're going to open the floor for any questions in relation to the paper. Questions or comments? Thank you, Councillor Taufa.
Yeah, on page 27.22, 21 and 22, just around the lower dividends from Gisborne Holdings Limited that we were then needing to borrow to smooth out the rates. Gisborne Holdings have told us that they are now going to pay us a dividend. Is that correct? So is that accounted in these, or will that come forward later?
Chair. So basically, the plan is what's forecast for next year. So what we had forecast and what they are forecasting in their statement of intent, what they're actually saying would be for the 25-26 financial year for a dividend there. We had more dividends in the past than what we're actually getting, but next year they were still forecasting a lower dividend in 26-27, but higher in 27-28. So that's the smoothing aspects of it, but it's definitely lower for next year, and it's taken into account here than what we had allowed for in the 3-year plan.
Just a few quick questions. Point number 24, the ozone package has been taken over by a new computer package. How old was the ozone package?
2001, okay. I think we first did it.
Well past its use by date. Thank you, Pauline. Page number, point number 30. And it's about how we've moved away from professional services and to employ internal staff. Are we actually seeing our professional services decrease? Our cost of professional services - consultancy fees decrease?
Yes, it's probably a qualification in there. In terms, and you can see that in terms of between the two, they're moderating between either employee costs or professional services, so they may be up in one but down in the other. So yes, those two are taken together when we consider that, but it's also to be mindful when we're leading into this, perhaps in previous years, it was a little bit higher, professional services, mainly because of the upload of work. So it's a bit of mix and match. Those two they've moderated each other out in terms of there's up in one, it's down in the other, reduced the budget in the other. But in terms of levels that it was, say, for 21-24, by its very nature of what we actually have to do for the recovery, professional services had to increase. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question on page 154, and it's about the flood protection for Karakia. I've been to most of the meetings out there. I did miss one, but The budget for this seems to have gone from, I think, 12 million was originally mooted, and then 22 million, and now I see it's topping 35 million. Is that correct, or what's happening there?
Yep, so, through the chair, so when we put the budget in originally for Te Karaka, and when we negotiated with Treasury around what we might need for river management, we were really clear that this was all subject to further modelling, and that the numbers were just a kind of a best guess at that time. And as the team had worked through more detailed designs with the community, it became clear actually that that original estimate that we put in was not going to be sufficient to deliver the level of protection that the community wanted. So what we're currently doing is working with the National Infrastructure Finance Funding Unit and the team to look at reprioritising the bucket of funding that we've currently got allocated. We will come back to council. We'll have a workshop with you around what the what we're looking at by way of prioritisation, but the team also have a funding bid in with the other regional councils, which is for national flood management, which will help if we're successful cover the shortfall. But equally, I just mentioned that we're also looking at some of the other buckets of funding within the whole recovery pot of money that we've been delivered. We've been funders, we will put that towards the control scheme.
Thank you. Next question is on 159 on the Wainaki transformation. Now this is reverting what was forest into native bush, and it was fully funded, and 5.8 mil was the total fund. We're now looking at, and it was fully funded, we're now as a council looking at putting in 1.4 million to keep this going, a total cost of 1.9 million. I'd just like to point out that our total spend on land, rivers and coastal is 4.8 million. So it's a significant chunk of money is going into a small little patch of land up there. We also had an independent consultant report on our progress to date on this project, and as I read it, it was quite critical of how much we'd spent and on our methods up there. And I just, how do we justify continuing to spend this amount of money up there, having had that report?
Can I just make a point of clarification? This project was never ever 100% externally funded. This project was heavily ratepayer funded. It was this has only seen a snapshot of 3 years. We said that over the 10 years that the probable cost was about 19 million, of which we got about 25 to 30% of external funding, and that was given straight up at the early stages. And so we've seen the benefits of that, and as we pull this out, there's our contribution that comes through from here. So just as a point of clarification,
Yep, okay.
This was always fundamentally our protection of the water pipes and things up there, but also making sure that there was a long-term benefit of that protection. Yeah.
That hasn't answered my question. Have we been cognizant of the consultant report that was critical of our spend?
Which council committee that?
Well, numerous meetings I've attended, I don't remember which one, but it was specific to that dollar spend up there.
So
Does any of the staff remember?
So the only thing that I can think of there was as part of the submissions, a person came here, he came in at that particular point and had his basis of what he believed it should be. However, in reality, those costs and what needed to go there isn't bearing reasonable, and we also compared that to a lot of research which was done, I believe Christchurch University, that they were coming up here, they were showing the additional cost and the benefit within the Wainaki area. They said that there's a lot of seeds and natural growing, so therefore it was reduce the cost. So that was an opinion of one particular person that was in there, but we bore it out and said no, there is others that show, and as the program progresses, it shows how we actually done it in optimising the kind of the whole program per se.
I can just add through the chair that if there is further questioning as we go into the long-term plan about what's the long-term budget required over the Waingaki project, because it will be ongoing pest management control, then that's something that we can bring back and do a bit of a dive in at the committee around. So show us some more information about comparable methods and bring in some of the experts that we have been working alongside in the field to then just give some assurance around what the budget
I'd just like to make a comment there, though. I think we've spent 17,000 a hectare already, and you know, for a transition flag, which we're trying to wave on the coast, this is not a really good example of to be able to get this transition through when we're spending this amount of money to transition. Moving on, sorry, I will finish shortly. That was it, sorry. Our cash surplus, our debt on page, what page is it? Page 177. Our debt has nearly doubled in 3 years. I'd just like to point that out to other councillors. I'm going to give an opportunity to speak later.
To the recommendation, to the recommendations. Yes, everyone.
Or would like me to get it off my chest now?
Are there any other? Yes, thank you, Councillor Muir.
Just with the 8.5% rate rises, that is the recovery component at 3.5 percentage points?
No, it is only about 0.5. Yeah, the BAU is a 7.9%, and then you put the recovery into the cost of that year, so that's why it gets to nearly 8.5.
And just the excluding growth term that goes with that, it's on page 175. Does that mean if there's growth in ratepayer base that the average rate rise is less than 8.4%?
No, the revenue that we need to, so basically the percentage that you talk about rates increases is the total revenue that we receive from rates over the previous year, not necessarily the percentage that an individual might see as a, it depends on what kind of services that the individual ratepayer has. And those that are articulated as service are going to pay more than those that are not articulated. So that's just a little bit of explanation there. So the total revenue over the previous year has increased, but the separation of the other thing is the growth in the rating base, which accounts for the 0.8%, meaning that revenue has increased by the either the new UAGCs, the new subdivisions that's coming through from the overall council revenue. So, yeah.
And on the benchmarks, so page 201, just the terminology, the rates affordability benchmark, I think it really is a rates limit benchmark rather than affordability, and just wondering if that could be considered, because for a lot of people these level of rates rises aren't affordable, and maybe the debt affordability benchmark could be, I mean it's really a debt limit benchmark, isn't it?
So just through the chair, that unfortunately the terminology is set by legislation. It is set and monitored by DIA, and it's in the local government financial reporting and prudence regulations. So they state categorically what these are, so they can compare to other councils, and they define that. They define the measures, they define what you include and what you're not. But I take on board what you're actually saying.
Thank you, Councillor Muir. Councillor Foster.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that's gone over the last 2 years, because this has been a really unusual year, last 2 years. Phenomenal amount of work, phenomenal amount of money coming into the region because of our recovery. And, you know, the amount of work that has been put into this region has been absolutely phenomenal. And the staff and everyone that's worked towards it, it's been really commendable. But the other side is that, unfortunately, it's cost us. And we've had, you know, we have 11.4% increase this year in rates. We're talking over 30% rates increase over the last 3 years, which really, for a region like us, is, you know, is pretty unsustainable. So, and when we went around doing our campaigning, the biggest issue that everyone had was talking was our rates. So I'm not, you know, it is what it is, but it's got to be acknowledged that the fact that we're having to do this is really not sustainable and it's not affordable for a lot of people in this region. And, you know, I'm reluctantly having to go and pass this, but, you know, I've actually brought it up quite a few times in different places. Our rate increases are just not sustainable for this region. And, you know, I'm just gulping having to approve this paper, but I'm going to, because I know the work that's been done, and we've just had another major weather event. We're going to keep on getting them, and it's just the reality of the new world. You know, the whole country's just facing so much problems with tax increases, rate increases right around the region from every council, you know, and I'm not quite sure how it's going to end, but it doesn't look good. So anyway, yeah, I am happy to move this paper, but I certainly have to mention what I've just done. So, thank you.
Councillor Thompson, then Councillor Gregory.
Yeah, in my last term in council, yeah, I mentioned numerous occasions about the amount we were borrowing. So my last term of council, our loan almost tripled, and it sort of astounded me. So yeah, with this annual plan, yeah, I wasn't happy with the amount we're borrowing, and it looks like we're borrowing an extra 10 mil on top of our 3-year plan, which I'm already not happy with what we're borrowing. It's just not, there's just no light at the end of the tunnel. We're just digging ourselves a hole. For me, this is our budget, and we need to stick with our budget, or it's easy to borrow money, but you're just digging into the hole. What would it mean for us if we were to say, no, we're not spending 10 mil more than our 3-year plan, we're going to stick to our 3-year plan? What would that mean?
Two things. The 7 million was approved in this financial year, so that's already occurred. And you approved it with the 25-26 annual plan adoption. It was acknowledged that the NCTA potholes budget was approved after we did our own budgets. And so the predominant ones was in order to meet the additional funding and leveraging of the funding that NZTA said we can meet that by having a loan with it. So this year, that extra 3 million is trying to still say we're meeting that additional costs associated with the total budget. So that's the majority of it, and also the impact of not having a dividend for those particular ones in the previous years. So what does that mean? What can you do? The reality is you would have to reduce, so 7 million's already gone and it's already been approved. So it's kind of the 3 million that if you did not want to, do you meet the roading budgets to increase it? And so that's your options associated with it. Do you want to reduce some of these spend on the roading, because that's what it's for, and whatever you borrow needs to go against the activity that needs it. And so that means reducing on the road.
Councillor Gregory, and then we'll head over to the Mayor.
Thank you. What Larry said, it's a difficult rate hike to approve. However, been here since the beginning of the recovery and knowing what was coming because of what we had to pay for because of the recovery, I understand what's going on, and this hopefully will be the last big hike that we have, disasters excluded, that we have to deal with in our district. So I just want to clarify, this is a draft annual plan, but today we are adopting it. No. This is a draft annual plan that we're approving.
So effectively, it's a draft, but it doesn't become final until the other changes that come through the year, and you do it in June. But effectively, what we do in the process is we do it early to assess, do we need to consult? Is there significant changes to what we actually said it was, and do we not? So that's why you have a two, so you look at the first and then you adopt in the final.
Thank you. So I'm happy to second it, this paper. But I just have a couple of things I just wanted to talk about Wainaki for a moment. It was something that came to a council before me, but it was hugely supported by the community to put funding into that project to look after our water line. So I just wanted to correct that, and also there is future potential for that area that we haven't looked at yet. Once it is all in natives, so there's a tourism type opportunity. So it's hard to measure all of those gains in a financial manner. And also in the two things in the report, that I noticed that the cycle and walking is able to extend the path from Martin to Botanical Gardens. I didn't realise that was going to be enabled through this, and that's possibly the only exciting thing inside this plan. And lastly, the community-led plans on page 156. So this is coming out of Gabrielle and the communities getting together and deciding what they could do or what they needed to do to make their places safer. And I was just wondering, what sort of things are we talking about that are going to be done with that 4.3 million?
It's probably two things. There was the community-led plans was actually, and a lot of the funding that we actually had within some of those grants where they came through, and then they might have had resilience or things that were built into boards or they first aid training. There was significant amounts that they said this is what we wanted, and they may have been delivered, each one of them, say 30,000 or whatever the grants that had. That was delivered in the initial first year. That was the kind of the low level of the plans. The second part of this is what also goes into the township plans. And so this is mostly this capital works here is the township's deliveries of those plans that you actually have.
If I can add through the chair, so in particular we've highlighted that there are planned footpaths and crossings in Wharekahika, for example. It's likely that they will need to review their plan and they will want to reprioritise. So there are things like that that will come through this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll head online to the Mayor. Thank you, Your Worship.
Gerda, thank you for all of this. I firstly want to acknowledge that the rate rise that we are signing off today is tough for our communities. I recognise that this is on top of a cost of living crisis where there's a 15% increase in electricity. Just this morning, they said the CPI for groceries is now or more to the 4 or 5%. So I do want to acknowledge that it is tough out there. The flip side of this is as a council, we need to acknowledge the huge amount of work that has happened. If I just think of the last month, the way our stormwater system has performed. Since I've joined council a long time ago, we've spent more than $80 million on wastewater. I'm in Wellington today, and it's a shame what's happening here. So we also need to reflect on what this money has done for our community. Also, when we have events, yes, a lot of money comes into the region, but we always have to add our local share, which is money we need to stump up when work needs to be done. So I do also want to acknowledge the huge amount of work that staff has done. This is tough, but we also should be proud of the slow progress we are making to build the infrastructure that our community deserves. As this year progresses, from now on, all councillors will work together to work for the next 3 years, where we will go line by line to sort out what it is that our community needs, not want, what they need, because the ship has sailed a long time ago with the wants for us, what the community needs and how we are going to pay for it. So I do want to acknowledge that, yes, this is tough for our community. It's tough for communities through the whole of Aotearoa, but I also want us to know that as a council, after Cyclone Gabrielle 3 years ago, we sat down and worked on this 3-year plan, and then the community told us what they needed, and we decided how we can pay for it. We can always do better, and I know going into this next 3-year plan that we will do our utmost, or 10-year plan probably for us, but it usually is about 3 years, that we will again strive to keep the rates as low as possible, because every one of us is a ratepayer as well. And if you ask any mayor or any councillor across the country what they would like to achieve, it is to have low rate rises. So I do acknowledge that what we're looking at today is a relatively high rates increase, but going forward, we are also discussing rates caps today with the Prime Minister. We are going to sit down as a council and work as hard as we can to keep the rates rises as low as possible, but also take into account that our community deserve good infrastructure, that we don't just kick the can down the line, so that our kids need to pick it up when wastewater was not invested in or the stormwater was not invested in. I do want to acknowledge the stormwater team specifically. I came in a few times overnight in the last month, and they were here every few hours monitoring how they have to move, what they had to move, and work with the pump stations to make sure we didn't open the scours again in the last event. So that's enough from me. I just wanted us to be clear that a lot of work has also happened, and I do want to acknowledge the staff for that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Tuttle. Any other questions or queries?
Is it time to...
Not yet.
Okay.
We'll just see if anybody else who hasn't had a go would like a go. Thank you, Councillor Tupara.
I'll have a bit of a say. It is shocking to see the numbers that are in front of us, but they're realistic to where this country's at. And you know, we can comment about the cost of transition from Pines to Ngāhere. It's a reality of what we have in our minds for our mokopuna. And I think it is, transition of any kind is difficult. But this this 1-year plan is part of a longer term plan, a 30-year plan, a mokopuna plan. And we have to stump up and do our best at this time with what we've got and with what we haven't got. And none of it is good. It's taxing and tiring and exhausting for our community. And but I have to commend the staff thinking through to find the smoothest path for that. And it's not a rocky path. It has dead ends and all kinds of can't go throughs. It's like the Waiweka Gorge of planning documents. It carries a hope and an inspiration, not for now, but I'm reading through it for our mokopuna. And I just want to commend staff for that. Not an easy thing to do, and I appreciate what you brought to us. Doesn't read very well, but I appreciate it. And I like to hope that it becomes an example of way we're transitioning the Te Rāwhiti going forward. And recovery from weather events, this is a recovery from the lifestyle that we thought was normal over all of my lifetime, has proven to be the detriment for our region. And this is the staff saying, we can get through this. It's never ever going to be easy. It's going to get worse because there will be a bloody another storm around the corner. But this is the best that we can pitch with the very little that we have. And for that, I'll be supporting resolutions here.
Councillor Tupara, if we can refer to the recommendations on page 125, we've had 3 in support. I'd just like to ask at this point if there are any not in support of the recommendations. We'll go to you, Councillor Elder.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This annual plan is our budget, and we as councillors are not here to rubber stamp documents put in front of us. I googled common budgeting mistakes. Too little in emergency funds, overusing credit cards, overusing loans, supersizing the house, and getting used to 2 incomes. My experience in budgeting is from farming. In good years it was easy, BAU plus extras and the wish list and a holiday. In tough years, a budget is a dynamic document. You start the year with one, then you revise, often with consulting banks, advisors, neighbours and family. I believe this council is in tough years. Central government, our other income, has made it clear. Local government amendment bill introduced in 25 aims at refocusing New Zealand councils to core service and spending on basics, emphasising fiscal discipline, enhanced performance and transparency, and also strengthening the accountability of elected members. The bill also removes the 4 well-beings, social, economic, environment and cultural, from the council's purpose. And I quote Simon Watts, council will need to prioritise core services and spending, carry out extra financial reporting and transparency and accountability reporting, and disclose all contractor and consultants' spending. We need to sharpen our pencil. On page 125, we're being asked to approve more borrowing. That's going to load our mokopuna. The Capital Works Programme, on page 199, $156 million across all categories. We are maintaining or increasing the spend. $23 million more than was planned in our 3-year plan. Last night's news, the Infrastructure Commission's report on a 30-year plan stated that New Zealand's 5.8% of GDP spend on infrastructure is amongst the highest in the OECD. However, we are at the bottom, in the bottom 10% when it comes for bang for buck, when it comes to efficiencies of the spend. And he stated, we often put aside essential maintenance, unquote. I am continually bombarded by rural businesses and residents who need their roads fixed. They can't get fertiliser on or stock out. Their drains dug so they can continue to be productive. And they are constantly told by this council there is no money. I can't support this annual plan as it stands, and I propose a revision, a trimming of costs in non-core services, and a re-look at the potential efficiency gains in the projects we're about to commit to. A new budget-annual plan that doesn't borrow more and addresses the real issues of our community. So I will be voting against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elder. Are there any others who would like to speak again?
Yeah, pretty much what I mentioned before. Like, it's easy to put the extra money on the loan. If you put that 10 mil onto rates, there'd be a public uproar, but because it's put on the loan, they don't see it. But it's not free money. It's going to compound down the track, and they're going to pay for it down the track with interest and everything else. So, yeah, where I stand now, yeah, for me, at a minimum, we need to stick to our 3-year plan. I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any others who would like to speak? Yes, thank you, Councillor Tauwha.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. If we look at our debt, in 3 years we've increased $70 million. Now, a debt is not counting money that's come in from the government. That's actually debt on our balance sheet. $70 million in the last 3 years, and we're predicting another 53 over the next 2 years. This is just not sustainable, and we do need to really look at what our core services are. We putting the money where we really need it? So I'm struggling with it. It's a huge increase in a period of time of 5 years. It's not sustainable, and we either need to trim our cloth or have a really good look at our whole organisation.
Thank you, Councillor Tauwha. That being said, it's been moved by Councillor Foster and seconded by Councillor Gregory. Those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Those against? Those in favour have it.
Could I have one recorded, please?
Right, let's flip back to page 12. Draft fees and charges for financial year 2026-2027. And I will hand it over to you, Pauline.
Thank you. So basically, this is the annual process of putting and consulting with our fees and charges. So the other side of rates is user fees. Rates being the general assumption that there's a public good and can't be associated with a private benefit. So user fees is that element associated with it. Most of them are cost recovery. They're all set by legislation purposes, and most of it has the rates that we had within Burl in order to get the cost recoveries, etc. Happy to take any questions. It is a detailed and very much itemised kind of the prices within there, but the overall concept is fees and charges is a user pay, and these are the amounts that are identified within the schedule that is out for consultation. Will be out afterwards.
Let's open it up for any questions. Councillor Thompson.
I've got 3 questions on this paper. It's good to see the comparisons. For me, it's real good to see what our costs are compared to other councils. Keep that in there because it gives us a page 15, why there's such a variance in different councils. It's not like $1,000, $2,000 variance. There's like huge variances in costs. I'm just wondering why that might be the case.
It's very difficult to be able to say. They may do different elements associated with it, but some of it could be embedded in the revenue and financing policy. The revenue and financing policy says how much should you be collecting in user fees versus how much you would be collecting in rates. And so they may have a higher percentage that they believe that users should be paying towards the cost than what we have. So there's a raft of probably consideration. In some cases you may not be comparing apples with apples, or there's other things with it. But yeah, that's probably, and I can't probably give you any more details with it, the differences.
Page 15 mentions a new cost is $500 for an initial review and for a review and assessment of lodged consents. I think we already do an initial review and assessment before it's lodged. I'm wondering if you're able to explain that a bit more, because it seems like we're already doing that, and now there's a $400 cost for what
No,
it's been doing.
sorry, I probably can't give you the details exactly with it. I know that there was a separate one over and above with it, and Jocelyn's not here at the moment. But we can provide that information of what that is different than what it was before. If I can get it, I will try and get it to you as soon as possible, but I don't know specifically in terms of this particular one. Yeah.
So just one final question. Page 16, there's a marquee fee of $400. If I was to have a shindig and put a marquee up at my property, I would be very objectional to giving council $400 to put up a marquee at my property. For me, like the person putting up the marquees probably put up marquees for 20 years and owned marquees for 20 years. And I'd say he's got a lot more knowledge than someone coming to inspect it. To me, it's sort of overstepping the mark. And yeah, instead of increasing the fee from $250 to $400, I'd like to see that removed, because yeah, there's no way I'd be paying council $400 to put a marquee up on my own property.
This one comes up probably on a regular basis. And again, we haven't got Ian for the consents, but it's not your marquee that you put up in your own property. It's based on something that actually has to have a consent. It's the number, it's the size of the marquee, it's the number of people that it would be probably underneath that marquee, so it has to be constructed and put up correctly, and that's the consent signing off to say yes, we've seen that it is okay. And I'm not sure of the numbers. It might be over 100 people. I'm not exactly sure with it, but we can give you those kind of follow-up as the details in there of where it usually occurs.
The council takes no accountability if something happens, so why are they doing this? If something happens, nothing falls on council. I'm just wondering what you're paying this money for. What benefit do you get from it?
It's a consent, so therefore it has to meet that consent conditions, regulatory. So by default, eventually if you signed off on a consent, maybe there's an indirect, but if in the event that it did occur and someone was playing with poles and it fell down, but you wouldn't be liable in that situation, but it is a consent, so therefore there's regulatory cost and making sure people go out and inspect it. So we have a cost associated with checking to see that it is okay. Is that?
If you stayed out of it, there would be no liability whatsoever. It would be on the person, private property, on them. I'm just suggesting that for me, you're overstepping the mark. It's like, it should be on the person on their private property. If anything happens, it's on them. For me, I struggle how council can sort of come into that, why they would want to.
We're required to do that. It's part of the regulations. It is the cost. Yeah, so we're required to actually sign off on those particular sizes. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. We're going to go online to the Mayor.
Thank you for that. I just want to highlight here, especially with what Councillor Thompson just brought up, is that council don't just, or council staff don't just sit around and decide what are the things that they want to irritate the public with. There are certain regulations that we have to follow. We are a unitary authority that have regulations that we have to do. The example that you just used about the marquees, kapai, that you have the skill or know someone who can put up a marquee. Maybe if I organise a wedding, I don't have that skill and I would like my guests to be safe and follow the proper rules. But not even that, council has an obligation to make sure that certain activities in our region are monitored. Yes, it is a pain in the ass often for the public, because we are a number 8 wire society where we do think we can do a lot of things. But council have certain rules that we have to oblige with, and this is what council staff are saying. In order for us to do these, this is the fees that we should charge. So they've justified in the paper what are the reasonable fees. There are some increases that I've seen with some consent and forestry, but overall, I am satisfied that we are meeting our requirements as a regional council. So I'm happy to move this paper.
Thank you. Councillor Telfer.
Yeah. After that, yeah, look, if you look right through these, some of them are up to 20%, 30%. There's one here that's gone up by 900%, and that's a transfer of a water consent or partial transfer of water consent to another person. It's gone from $250 to $2,500. I would have thought that there must be some real complicated stuff involved to be able that sort of an increase. It seems exorbitant.
Yeah, I think the pricing was assumed that it was of a low level. So 250 didn't actually, effectively what they have to do is and the price is reflective of the new application fee. And that in effect is not just a simple transferring into somebody else's name, they have to actually do 2 new ones. And so the 250 was only a cursory recognition of the cost, but it actually is a new application fee that they have to actually process. And so that's why they've said these are the costs, and this is more reflective of that. So basically it was far lower than what it ever should have been.
Thank you. Councillor Elder.
Thank you. A couple of questions. One, page 28, we're talking about our housing. The houses that the council own are rented out at 90% of market rate. It doesn't mention what staff housing is rented out at. Is that also market rate or a percentage of?
I think it's nearly 100%.
It is 100%. Thank you. Next question is on the solar panels. I noticed that's got quite a high increase. And I would have thought that's something that's gone up 21% to have solar panels consented. And I just wonder why we're whacking that one up so high when that's actually something we want to encourage for resilience, etc.
I can't I would say it's the cost recovery and the cost of actually doing it. Joss is not here, but what we can do is get the more details and put it into the what were the other costs associated with it. But basically, these have been estimated how long it does it take, what is the number of hours, what do they actually have to do in terms of the process, and so it's kind of reflective of the cost recovery.
Sorry, I'll just add it's not as simple tick box exercise as it used to be. It's a bit more regulated, so that requires a bit more technical checks. So that's why the fee for that has gone up. But you're right in terms of we do want to find ways to encourage that, but it's unfortunately what we started with the regs.
Happy to second.
Thank you.
So page 41, sign consent, there's no fee there, but it says some signs will require land use consent. Could you just explain when consent would be required for a sign and in what locations? I mean, if someone wanted to put a sign outside their shop in town, which a lot of shops do they require do they have to pay a fee?
Again, a little bit technical, and unfortunately, without the expertise to why they put their fees in there, I can't actually. It does say that it is C2 on resource consent.
Sorry, it's within our district plan. We've got specifications around your limits of sizes, so the height restrictions, visibility, and that. So it's really a consenting technical issue, which would be specified if we did have a look at the district plan. I don't know. And you know that there's a lot of contention around what is a sign and what isn't, but if in doubt, talk to the consenting team.
Yeah, I mean, we've got national elections coming up with there'll be these signs all around the place everywhere, and they won't be requiring consents.
They're permitted under different legislation.
Yeah, right, okay. Yep. The other one that was on page 23, and I probably should know this, but what's an amusement device?
Mind boggles.
I'm not sure, sorry, we, 23?
I think it's like the things you'd see at the A&P show, like the rides, for example.
Not a bouncy castle.
No. Oh, maybe. Yep. I thought you were going to go somewhere else.
Councillor Muir.
Just around the quite significant increase in failing to display parking authorisation tickets in the pay and display areas from $40 to $70. I mean, I understand that to be a behaviour change tool and probably quite an it's really understandable, but just to know that would be publicised well, social media campaign or something, just so that our community do know that. I mean, I noted that our parking was pretty low in the report we had a while back on negative interactions from the public. Really pleased to see. So that's, but I wouldn't want that to go the other way.
Can I just check on that? I think that one is set by Land Transport, parking regs.
Yeah, there are a number of charges related to parking. Some we control and some we don't. So there has been a substantive uplift in the government-controlled fines, for example. Like it's a massive leap for people parking a disability pass. It used to be, I think, circa 100 to 150, now to 750. We've seen similar uplifts across that whole sort of government influence space, and also the last fees and charges we did increase our parking fee as well. So that's sort of been had that sort of knock-on impact. We introduced that a little bit later, and there was a slight delay with putting that into market, so to speak. We've got some other changes that are coming up as well for our parking space, not necessarily in the fee sense, but the technology, because they're cutting 3G, so we're having to figure out what to do in that space and upgrading everything to 4G, etc. So it's a bit of a running commentary, so to speak.
Councillor Thompson.
So fees are set locally and fines are set nationally, and the reason they've done that, put them up so much, is it was always cheaper for someone to pay a fine, actually cost for their parking, so that was the reasoning behind that.
Any other questions? We have a mover in the Mayor and a seconder in Councillor Alden. All in favour? Aye. Any against? Right. Thank you. It is, yes, let's go. The next one is a notaring report. So it is paper 2643, Rates and Sundry Invoice Debt Management to the 31st of December 2025 on page 234.
But I think, Fiona, if you want to come up, just in case there's anything.
Oh, you got the smoke on.
Oh, it's a noting report, so let's see if we can get through it. And if you don't ask any questions, we might make it too quick.
But happy to actually take it as read within the report. There's one of your reports that perhaps even the new councillors, this is the second time that we've seen this report, and we'll get these regular updates.
By any questions, queries from any councillors for the Rates and Sundry Invoice Debt Management?
There's the glamours on page 231.
Councillor Health. Just give me a minute to find the notes.
One.
Yes, Councillor
While you're doing that, just on the sundry debtor age debt, it says it's a comparison 2025 with 2024, but it only gives whether it's gone up or gone down. It would be good to have another column that shows the actual total debt figures for 2024 so that we actually can compare.
For the chair, yes, we can easily do that, but just to, most of the Sundry debt movement is based on invoicing the Crown, and so therefore 1 year you might have high, or it's in transition, it's waiting for things, so, and it may be low, so it's really a phasing of even most of those for the capital projects, and so sometimes the direct comparisons isn't as great because you're not, 1 year may be different to the other. And so that's, as opposed to the rates, which is directly comparable. Yeah, that's the only thing. If you do that, you may not be comparing the same kind of levels, because I think at one stage it was not the last 3 months, it might have been the quarter perhaps previous to that. The difference between the 2 years was 7 million.
Councillor Elder.
Thank you. So this question might have just been answered. I didn't quite grasp it, but on page 234, were you talking about the sundry debt there, where we've gone from 8.5 to 1.2 million? And the decrease was mainly due to the payment of several funding contracts.
That's exactly right.
That is what you're talking
yeah,
about.
that is what I'm talking about. Yeah. So they're not, sometimes they're not directly comparable. As I say, last time there might have been a lot of Crown payments or invoicing to them because we had the capital schedule coming up, and so that. But this year, that schedule isn't the same timing of it. Yeah.
Thank you. And sort of second question, dash comment. Thank you for the report. But you know, you've just got to see that graph cranking up, and if we can't see and know what that's telling us, we shouldn't be sitting here. My comment: our rates are becoming increasingly unaffordable. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Tupara.
I have a comment really. Page 237, bullet point 15 and 16. Just like to comment about the reduction, the percentage reduction indicated there, but also to acknowledge the engagement with landowners by staff. And I know as a person heavily involved with multiply owned Māori land, it's a difficult task, and it does come down to character, personality, forethought, and nature of engagement. And I just wanted to acknowledge the staff that's not emphasised enough in my view in that bullet point, just how important that is to making that particular part of this report have a gain and improve our lot in that situation. And so that's just a little nod to thank the staff for the nature in which they are engaging.
Any other questions, councillors? Moved by Councillor Gregory.
I just got just a comment. I mean, with our rates increases, and we're seeing that graph just jumping up big time since 2020, and particularly over the last few years with our recovery program. But we've got rate remissions and rate rebate schemes here, and it's just got to be publicised so much that these are available for people that are struggling. You know, I know we do it as much as we can, but the word has got to get out there that there is some relief, and it's government funded, which is good. So the rate remission schemes and rate rebate schemes, they've got to be really promoted and utilised, and one would hope that the government might implement them and start using these facilities a lot more to assist councils with their rates debacle.
So we do go out to the retirement villages and promote it and do rebates for them. And we're also in the process of going to some public meetings, like there's public groups like Great Power, and that we can link up with. So we are going to look at focusing on that before the end of the financial year, so that as many people as possible.
That's great, yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm happy to second it as well.
Councillor Tibble.
I just want to refer to page 238. A question that occurs for me at looking at the top of graph 1 is, firstly, it's lovely to see that by various methodologies and change in policy and practice regarding points 11 to 17, this graph allows us to see the equitable share of how rates are distributed in the region according to the purple and the green line, that we're on comparatively the same in terms of general land and Māori land, with maybe a 1% differential. It's lovely to see that, and I know that we asked for this previously, so thank you very much for that clarity in this report. I guess my further question to that, to give some more substantiation to understanding the quantitative and the qualitative aspect of that, is what is the portion then of Māori freehold land versus general land in relation to how the rates are being paid? I understand the argument that our rates have grown extensively, but at the same time, it'd be great to understand of the territory how much percentage is general land rates recovery versus Māori land rates recovery. Then these numbers become more comparative in the same way that we now have a demograph of, 56% Māori in the population. So these things then give greater visibility to the contribution of Māori to the rates overall that wasn't seeable previously. So this is a next question that I'm asking. Can we have that data to be reported back to us?
Through the Chair, there's a little bit of a difficulty in that. I mean, we can say the Māori freehold land, which is around 20% in terms of the rateable property, in terms of area. Might be more, 20 to 30%. And so you can demonstrate that, but perhaps the wider context says, that there's Māoris within that, and that becomes very difficult to extrapolate out. Some of the things that may, and I don't know whether we could be able to provide that metrics in terms of what we have, but fundamentally what some of the other things, which is quite interesting in terms of the sectors and understanding that perspective, the recent ones that we have residential, the residents sector pay about 54%, 54% of, might even be more than that, 50 to 60% of the actual total rates bill. We can get that, but in terms of a sector of, as a per population base, maybe a little bit trickier to define. But yeah.
As a supplementary, because our demograph is quite a unique situation here in all of Aotearoa, I'm thinking about this longitudinally. If we understood the footprint of Māori inside Māori freehold land and general land, we'd understand better economically where we are inside those situations when we come to debate at this table.
There may be...
and I'm saying that longitudinally because it's the way that government collects demographic stats, even in the education system. There's a point there in entering and enrolling where you have the opportunity to say that you are Māori. And the question that I'm posing is, in a future policy description, could it be that rates ask for that if you are a general land holder? I'm a Māori freehold land owner as well as a general land owner, and I would like that to be understood, knowing that that's my personal context and will be for the other Māori in this room, that we don't have any visibility on what that statistically means. And therefore, when we discuss rates here, we are disadvantaged by not having the quality of that information.
For the Chair, the rating definitions and where they are, and that is set by statute, and it's very driven by that. But perhaps the wider context is, how do we take perhaps a measure of our population, and then how do we make certain assumptions when we extrapolate that out in terms of their overall rates. It may not be 100%, but it may give you an indication of it, as opposed to defined what is in the rating space is defined by legislation, but we may be able to try to separated out by statistics, information, and population base. Yeah.
Just a final comment on that. What has been clear in the past is that if you have no visibility on how Māori are performing in these spaces, then you can't comment on measurement of growth and contribution. And that's actually what I'm asking for, because it's an economic positioning to understand our footprint here. Isn't there a unique demograph? I understand the fact that rates are collected everywhere else in the country, but they do not have the unique demograph that we have here, which does require visibility longitudinally, because we have a younger population than the rest of the ethnicities inside. And so when we talk about smoothing pay and costs of 30% increase in rates that will go across the long life term of assets, then this too is commensurately the same, but looking at it from a population basis of what will happen with Māori in terms of land ownership collectively and land ownership singularly.
Just one final thing, and I thank you, Councillor. As part of the revenue and financing and the workshops that comes through that into the long-term plan, we were also going to look at kind of revisiting the affordability issues. And maybe the metrics that we can get from Stats New Zealand, where if people have identified as that, and we can identify it from mesh blocks, we might be able to get a little bit more, try to get more granularity of it. But I absolutely hear what you're saying.
I might close it off. I just had one question, and it was similarly like the question around the No, actually, it got asked and answered, so I'm not going to double up on that question. The paper was moved by Councillor Gregory. It was seconded by Councillor Tupara. All in favour? Aye. Any against? Papai, thank you. Let's have a cup of tea. Kia ora tātou. If we can all turn to page 246. It is the Treasury report for the 31st of December 2025. I'm going to hand it over to staff. Pauline.
Thank you, Chair. So this basically is one of the other standard reports that we have at performance, which is the Treasury. I know that Gregory loves this report. So I'll just confirm that this is our debt, and mostly the debt that we talk about, net debt, which is the amounts of external borrowings, which is mostly with the LGFA, less any deposits that we may have. That is sometimes that we get the deposits, it's usually by exception, because we've got long-term loans to be repaid, and it's favourable to take out it earlier ahead of that time. So it's in our favour to do it, and it's a net cost to us. But effectively, we're on track. We've got the actual cost associated with the debt is matching to what we said was going to be in the annual plan. Another point, just to explain, because you'll see it in the following paper as well. Most will be aware of it, but I will explain it again. As part of the recovery package of 204 million, there was an additional concession for us that we were granted from Treasury a $30 million loan over 10 years at zero interest rate. The drawdown of that had to be in line with the costs of projects, mostly the voluntary Cat 3 properties, flood protection, and some of the roads. To date, we have drawn down 20 million and we've got 10 million to go, which we will probably use those interest as it aligns with the cost of the projects very shortly. Happy to take any questions in terms of this paper.
Opening floor up to any councillors. Any questions, queries? Councillor Muir.
Yeah, just with the interest rate benchmark on page 252, just wondering why we spike above benchmark interest rates in 2024 as much as it did. I mean, I can understand why we missed out on the low rates in 2021 without long-term borrowings, but yeah, just explain that.
So this, as was mentioned before, the interest rates did go up after COVID, and they were more than what we had expected. And so that's the alignment of them going up 1 and 1.5% more than what we had provided for. But we try to moderate most of that. We had lower also rates prior to that. So that's one is the actual rates went up higher than even that was projected. But there was a period of low before that, where we actually, the lowest ever, which we had a number of fixed term 1.9% interest rates, and they came off, and then the higher rates came up. And then the third part that actually is, that distorts that a little bit, we're at that time drawing down for the wastewater treatment plant. So all of those meant, okay, we're a little bit with those higher rates.
Any other questions, Councillor? Yes, Councillor Elder.
Chair, page on number 5, solid waste on page number 266. Just wondering why we've got woody debris coming in on our solid waste. I would have thought it would be good to keep the two separate.
Chair, that's the next paper.
Oh, sorry, is that? Oh, right. I went too far. Apologies.
Any other questions, councillors? Do I have a mover? It is a noting report. Seconder? Councillor Muir. All in favour? Aye. Carried. Page 255, financial report 31st of December 2025. Is it you again? It is. Thank you, Chair. This is just, as I say, to the results to December to date. It pretty much says we're tracking to budget, while there may be a little bit ahead, more revenue than expected. There's also the expenses, and so they kind of offset each other with regards to that. Pretty much it's self-explanatory in terms of, but I am happy to take any questions. Oh, a big pardon. What's being handed here, Councillor Elder quite rightly pointed out to the, that in terms of loading the system on page 259 of your agenda, the statement of comprehensive revenue and expenses, while the December year-to-date and the budget year-to-date and the variants are correct, the full-year budget got loaded a little bit, got screwed with, in which case that most right-hand column that you've got in front of you is the correct reference to the total annual plan budgets. But the year-to-date report and all the other information in there and the explanations around it are correct.
Can someone please email it to me?
Oh, you did.
It's already been sent out.
It has been
When?
Last week? Sunday?
Sunday.
Oh, okay, so then it isn't here. Thank you.
Any other questions or queries? It is another noting. Yeah, and it is another noting report. Can I get a mover for the noting?
I'll move it.
Yes, moved by the Mayor and seconded by Councillor Gregory. All in favour? Any opposed? Carried.
That's me.
Can I just, before we move on, just what Councillor Alder raised earlier, which caught my eye as well at 266, why the solid waste is also, solid waste to me, I think of it as rubbish, but I also see that our woody debris is in there. Did someone answer that question?
Yes, I did, and I was trying to ask it again, but things went too quickly for me, sorry.
You need to sharpen up, bro.
through the chair, I'll just explain. On those pages, which is 264, and it goes through to the very end of the paper, is around capital. So in terms of solid waste and the big projects that were in there, Tokomaru Bay, looking at the landfill remediation, those kind of costs where they are entrained with it. This doesn't have anything to do with the woody debris. It is actually the capital projects, most of the waste minimisation, either transfer stations, those kind of elements that are in these capital programs. I don't know whether I answered your question, but if there is other clarification, just let me know.
Thank you.
That's already and seconded. Page 271, our next paper.
Just through the chair. Yeah, this is the other one. And this is for the council has been thought a little bit different in terms where the activity reporting you perhaps have more of a blurb that comes through here. This is where it's focusing on the key performance measures. So these are non-financials mostly, that they're at the front of the report, but also gives you a bit of information where they are up year to date in terms of the activities, financials. These performance measures are also put in the annual report. So this is your progress, how we're going against what we will be reporting at the end of the financial year. Happy to take any questions, or I'm sure that the directors will go to these things I do not know the answer to.
Councillor Gregory.
I just wish to ask again about the satisfaction survey that's mentioned in this one, and I know it had some various misgivings that, and I just wonder if there's been any changes to how we do a satisfaction survey here.
Two parts of it, yes and no. There is meaning we supplement what the information that may have been recorded, so we have more information that is feeding into it per se, yes. So basically it's greater and wider as opposed to the 400 residential satisfaction that we do for a survey every quarter.
How do you supplement it? What do you supplement it with?
So if you have consultation, what was the responses, what did they come through with it? There's a point of contact in terms of what is your customer service, how do you rate this that you've just received it? There's a number of things that we have, and if I have got any of that wrong,
You've got it quite right, thanks Pauline. So there are point of contact surveys with customers that are happening, as well as through the consultation processes that we have, and seeking feedback around how well we've done in terms of consultation. So that's the supplementary sort of information that we're adding to the resident satisfaction survey.
Is there any intention to upgrade the way that we survey customers?
We're hoping, I'll let Lisa
So, are you talking about the resident satisfaction survey? So we've done a review on the way in which we've sort of implemented how we seek feedback, and we've tried different things with the company that does the survey, including through Facebook, as well as through, I suppose, other methods that the survey company have been able to provide us. And we're sort of getting mixed results in that. So we're going to be moving towards more of that sort of point of service feedback, as well as more surveys around consultation. So that's the sort of method that we're heading towards, rather than using the annual resident satisfaction survey.
Thanks.
Councillor Elton.
Thank you. So starting on page 302, which is Land, Rivers and Coastal, we are way behind on our spend on both capital and I think also both operational. I was wondering what this was, and I was hoping that it was still, and I declare a conflict of interest. I have been affected by the TRI River. I'm hoping we're behind because we've still got lots of work to do on the TRI River. No, I'm being flippant. Why are we so far behind on our spends for Land, Rivers, Coastal, and cap expenses?
6 months update.
To just reference on 302, which is the page that Councillor Allen was referring to, some of them are seasonal, and some of the, we were updating the information with our new tech run, whatever the systems, we're trying to get the phasing, so where you get some differences in terms of timing. Most of it may be that it is prior to that period, it may be in the second half of the year as opposed to in the first half of the year. But I'm happy to, if Tim has anything else to generally to answer those questions that you have raised.
Through the chair, I don't have any direct additional I can add to what Pauline has mentioned, but we have a committed program ahead of us.
My second question is on 304, and it again is reference to woody debris, where it does state that woody debris costs under total operating expenses, is that where it was? 2.3 million budget, mainly driven by woody debris extraction costs. So again, is this our woody debris budget muddying our rubbish fund?
Through the chair, no. Simple answer is we've got more income, and at the time of doing the annual plan and the long-term plan, we assumed that the woody debris money, which is an in and an out, you get revenue and spend, it's a net cost to the ratepayer. So in this particular one, we assumed all of that perhaps would have been completed by the 30th of June and not in this financial year. So what this is saying, we've got an extra that wasn't in the plan after adoption is 2.3 million worth of revenue, but we've also spent 2.3, so there's net impact to the ratepayer. So yeah.
So there's nowhere else to put it, kind of thing.
Oh, you have to recognise the revenue come in and you have to do the expenditure. And so we're saying it's a variance to the plan, mainly because they came in after the plan was adopted.
Thank you. That's me.
Any other questions? Yes, Councillor.
Thanks. Just 284. I've got a couple of questions actually. To start with 284 on solid waste. We haven't met our target by quite considerate, and saying it's working through to ensure RFSs are responded to in a timely manner. Is that the bulk of the reason why we haven't met our target, is because people are ringing up about their rubbish and we haven't got back to them with an answer on time, or is there some other underlying common questions that are coming from public about solid waste? Because it's it's one of our main, one of our things that we provide for our community, and if we're not happy, it's just not, it's hard to believe that it's just not the rubbish being picked up. If the rubbish is at the gate, they go past them and they pick up the whole lot. So it'd be nice to know why we're not meeting our target, and what are the most common RFSs.
So I might, through the chair, just in terms of that one, is what we're looking at, and that measure is our responsiveness. So part of it will be the number that's coming in saying, well, hey, my rubbish wasn't picked up. Part of it will be, do we contact them back and follow through if they had been requested, if they had said, yeah, we want to be notified by council. Some of it might be also that we haven't responded to general solid waste questions within a particular time frame that our request for services says so. So there's probably a bit more analysis to do underneath why we're not hitting those targets.
Is reporting of illegal dumping part of that?
Part of it. But it's what we did with that reporting of.
Okay, so it's just an area that needs to be enhanced. Yeah.
Well, it's the responsiveness to it.
The response to it, yeah. And the other one is on page 292, related to pests. Bear with me for a sec.
Working.
Yeah, the eradication pests, those targets were not met at all. Is species monitored, direct control only required, one active location pest.
Not working anyway.
Pest activity dormant, growth phase during this period. What does that mean?
For the chair, obviously Michelle would be better than me, but I think what it's saying, they didn't need to do as much because the pests and the plants weren't as active during that period, so therefore in that quarter one they may not do as much testing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right, yeah. So yeah, that's okay, cool.
Primarily for rooks, they do rooks on nest sites.
Yeah.
They're not nesting during that period.
Right. Okay. The other one is on page 306. 306. And it's to do, it's just, I was just interested to find out more funding our water and wastewater, stormwater. And is that something that they do direct, or is it done through development contributions?
I think development contribution or a financial contribution, yeah.
It's a financial contribution, so their contribution is isolated and put in here separately to anybody else's, I guess.
In some cases, yeah. If there's a particular development, you identify all of the costs associated with it. It usually is the proxy. By default, you work out the development contributions here.
Right, so as part of our development contribution budget or area, that is not included. So, it's isolated because it's Kaingaora, but it makes our development contribution to our developments less, if you know what I mean. It'd be good to have, if you're going to have development contributions as a contribution to our books, and Kaingaora one is separate, it's kind of hidden. It's hidden in a different environment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. So for the chair, I think that Kaingaroa, with regards to the development contribution, because the set prices are red herring, and I take it on board that you depending on the development that you have, you'll be charged basically for each subdivision, etc. Is the number of it multiplied by the cost that you have to pay for the wastewater, water supply, etc. So, yep, I take it on board. That is perhaps a little bit of a red herring.
Yeah, and so they charge the same amount as what anybody else in that respect?
Yes, there would only be certain circumstances that you would be considering things if a development and they were perhaps contributing financially to other costs that we didn't have it. You would consider, is there a net cost between those development contributions or other financial contributions that they're paying?
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is because when you're looking at the population and the whole economic activity of the region and the growth, development contributions are a major part that you look at to see how much growth we've got. And if the development contributions are not, are low, well then you know that there's the construction industry is not in the best of state for the future. But if Kaingaroa is hidden, it's not there, then you're getting a false reading. That's my concern.
No, they'll be included in terms of it. So how the development contributions are usually calculated is what is the work that you're going to do in the future over that period, what is the growth component that you're actually doing in terms of that infrastructure and each of the activities, and then how much do you think, what is the work that's that's known, what occurs as a general, and then you just say, okay, this is the amount that we need to collect for each new. So by very nature, it doesn't really matter whoever it is, it's the cost that this is what we need to do the work.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
But, it's, you know, for me, a lot of times I look through when I'm doing things, and I look through, and the development contribution is an indicator of where the region's heading, going. You know, the growth component of it. So, yeah. Thank you.
Any other? Yes, thank you, Councillor Muir.
Yeah, just a small question really on the land, rivers and coastal responsiveness as to requests for service. The results are good, unlike with the solid waste, but then I just wondered what entails the comment and the myth target, because the results were received but could not be verified as the required information was not provided. Is that just an internal thing in the council that the required information was not provided, or?
So that's on page 283.
Sorry, 283.
No, 283, and it's the second response to service requests. I would have to come back to exactly what that means. I know some of the...
Sorry, Pauline, just sorry to see if Tim could respond.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, can I have that question again?
Just on the, there was a miss on the responsiveness to requests for service in land, rivers and coastal, and it says that while the results were received, and they are good results, but they couldn't be verified as the required information was not provided.
Yeah, I had a detailed response to that, and we, which I can get back to you, but it's a paragraph.
Yeah.
But it basically says, yeah, we have responded to those responses.
You see that?
I can share it back to everyone.
Councillor Taupo.
Just a query, page 277. If we're looking at targets, targets met and targets not met, it says there all performance targets were achieved for the following activities, and then you start moving down through and solid waste wasn't met, roads and footpaths weren't met, eradication of pests weren't met. So I'm just trying to get my head around it. Are these the targets of this is responding to RFSs, it says here? Is that what the target is, or are these targets different targets up the top where they're saying they're all met?
So what we've done is page 2, so I'm just giving you a little bit of context. So what you are on 276, it says, this is the number, there's that graph that says performance measures, and it says within each of the activities, how many performance measures in each of those activities. And you can see that the ones in red, they weren't met. There was one that's not met in solid waste, there's one in livable communities, and one that was close but not quite, which is the yellow. And if it's grey, they couldn't be measured at that particular point in time. So what you're seeing up front by exceptions is, what those ones that are isolated that weren't met, and they were slightly under. And then you go into the second part of the section is all the other remaining ones, which is all the other ones in green on that 276. What are they? And that they were met. But I'm happy, Nadine.
So basically, Councillor Taupo, it's pages 276 to 278 are the high-level summary, and then it breaks it down by area from 279. So it's a summary, and then you go down to 279.
Okay.
Any further questions, Councillor Taupo? Circle back around to Councillor Elder.
Thank you, Chair. Page number 309, which is stormwater, and I see we're behind down a little bit on operationals, but quite markedly down on capital expenditure on that rather than project. Is there a reason?
to 6 months.
Tim?
There is, just before Tim gives a wider response, on page 265, which says the financial information, which was the financial report, it says separates the capital expenditure. And on bullet point 3, it says about stormwater, what is the full program, what were the costs of December, and what are they doing with it. So obviously, is there anything else up to Tim to respond to the rest?
Just through the chair, the stormwater, we're slow on spending. We're taking time to get, we don't have many projects. So we budget if we miss a financial year, shows up as delayed, which is exactly what happened with the Frame Street project. So that's now underway, period.
Regional leadership and support is probably explained as well. That's quite an increase as well in both capital and page 313 in this format. Both capital and revenue expenses are considerably, and operational expenses are considerably over, but as are revenue. So I guess there's a simple explanation.
Probably Lagoimas.
Yeah, on page 314, it says that there's more revenue than the budget is for category 2P house lifting, and so that came after the adoption of the annual plan, and in addition to that, even the category and expenses, a category 3. In most cases, we had budgeted for it being a capital buyout, and in some cases, people chose to do a relocation. And so what happens, relocation expenses, operational. We allowed for it, but that's where there's a put a difference. We'll have that more recorded under our capital. So effectively, yeah, just the differences in terms to what the plan stated. Yeah.
Right, any other questions? Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Gregory, seconded by Councillor Foster. All in favour? Aye. Carried, moved. Right, that brings us to the end of the... Yes. So, can someone please move that we go into... do I have to vote to move back into the end? Right.
Yep.
And people...
I'll move us out of public exclusion.
So the Mayor has moved us out, seconded by Councillor Gibson. Closing publicly excluded. We're going back into our council meeting, and now, thank you everybody. We've had a wonderful time. Is there anything I may have missed? It's been a very exciting morning.